Game Week 28 is here, so it's time to finalise those FPL teams. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan. It feels like it's been a long time since we actually got to sit down and play some FPL, so I'm very excited. I hope you guys are too, and I'm going to be sharing with you my team and my thoughts and my strategy for the new game week and beyond. So guys, first things first, let's have a look at Game Week 27 and how I got on, cast our ways all the way back then. And actually, generally speaking, I did get a lot of players returning this week. Only a few of my players actually did blank, but with Cole Palmer, the differential captain, blanking, as well as not really any super high scores here, I did have to rely on the likes of Cliver and Wisser in order to get me a green arrow. But it is the third consecutive green arrow now, 3 in a row, after a bit of a difficult period in FPL for me, but we're definitely heading in the right direction now, and most importantly, we have a really strong strategy now of how we're going to hopefully beat a lot of the crowd by thinking ahead and thinking pretty smart, and a lot of those foundations have already been laid out. So even though it was an okay score last week, and the bench is certainly looking a little bit thinner with Isaac dropping to the bench, auto subs off for Castagna last week, Hall is obviously injured now as well, I think there's definitely some things we can do, and we have got some transfers to do some stuff as well. But before we have a look at my moves for Game Week 28, do make sure you do click the like button, and if you haven't subscribed yet, then please do that as well. Yellow cards for everyone who hasn't liked and subscribed, red cards coming up for anyone who doesn't, even after this. Let's keep moving. Okay, so it's been a big couple of weeks of thinking, planning, and strategizing, but it's finally time to start talking about Game Week 28, and in goal, I do have Pickford first of all, who plays against Wolves, which is particularly nice now for Pickford owners and anyone who owns Everton goalkeepers, defenders, because we have no Cunha in that Wolves team, and Cunha is so important to that Wolves team. I can't really think of any other player who is more important to their team, particularly in attack, than Cunha is to Wolves. So I think Everton, with their improving form, decent defensive numbers recently, I think you got a really good shot of a clean sheet here, despite it being an away fixture. In defence, we have Trent Alexander-Arnold for this great fixture against Southampton, with Liverpool not through in the Champions League quite yet, only played on Wednesday and play again on Tuesday for the Champions League. We do have a situation where we could see a small amount of rotation, but thankfully for Trent, the only player who can come in and replace him at right back is gonna be Kwanzaa, and I think it's more likely that Kwanzaa comes in for Konate, given Konate's injury history, injury record, and I think the drop-off at right back between Trent and Kwanzaa is so significant. We've seen comments this week from Slot, who's basically said, you know, we obviously may have to rest some players because of the condensed fixtures, but we need to win this game. This is a super important game. Every game is important for Liverpool right now, and he is not going to be making changes to the team that negatively impact the team. And by benching Trent, that will negatively impact Liverpool quite significantly. So I think Trent is safe. I think we're good there. I think Salah is another player who is safe from rotation this week. Although players who are maybe injury prone or, you know, recently injured, maybe not fully fit, those are going to be the kind of players that are at more risk. And we're looking at the likes of Gakpo, for example, maybe Konate to a degree. But players like Alisson, Trent, Salah, Van Dijk, these players I think will absolutely be safe and fine to play. Even Luis Diaz, I think, is probably reasonably good, but maybe not as guaranteed as some of those other players. But we've got Gabriel next in my team. Manchester United away is the fixture. And given how poor Manchester United have been recently, I do definitely back Arsenal to keep a clean sheet in this fixture, even though on paper it doesn't sound like an amazing one. I'm just hoping Gabriel can finally get on some score sheets again. It seems like it's been ages since we got a goal or an assist from this guy, and he's meant to be the aerial threat set piece mastermind, but clearly not been happening recently. And my final defender today is going to be Kirkes, and this is maybe a little bit of a controversial one, and that is partially due to my injury situation. And remember guys, I do have 2 free transfers to try and do something, but Kirkes is certainly a player who I would have preferred to bench for Lewis Hall, if Hall was available. But with Hall injured, Hall has had to drop to my bench, and I'm kind of forced to play one of Kirkes or Castagna. Now, let's have a look at the odds right now for the clean sheets to see if we can use that to help us make these defensive benching decisions. And we can see Liverpool have a 46% chance of a clean sheet according to Rob T's projections here. Chelsea in second, 44%, followed by Crystal Palace and Arsenal. So these are the top defenses of the week. After that, we see Wolves, Brighton and Everton here as well. Pretty nice indeed. And after that, you know, it gets a little bit more mixed, but what we certainly see is the two defenders I have a choice between this week, excluding Hall, are going to be Castagna and Kirkes. Castagna is down at 17% chance of a clean sheet for Fulham against Brighton away. And we see Bournemouth away to Spurs. We've got just a 15% chance there. So not too much difference, only 2% difference. And the way I've made this decision is who I think is going to be better on the attack. And I think certainly we can see that Bournemouth have a much better projected goals than Fulham this week. And also, I think in general, Kirkes is a more attacking player than the likes of Castagna. So that 2% difference in clean sheet odds, I think, is kind of overcome by the fact that Kirkes probably has a better projected attacking return for this fixture this week. So that is the reason I've gone for Kirkes, but I appreciate neither player is in an ideal situation right now. But I guess if you want to look at the form of the two opponents, Brighton and Spurs, Brighton's certainly in better form at the moment. So I think maybe another reason that is pushing me towards Kirkes ahead of a Castagna. But hey, if I had someone like Aït-Nouri or Mikalenko or, you know, Munoz, these kind of guys, I would certainly be playing them ahead of Kirkes. So I'm not trying to say Kirkes is perfect, but I think he is going to be maybe good enough. We'll have to see. Maybe there's a transfer that needs to be done there. But let's move on into the midfield anyway. First of all, we do have Mo Salah. Again, some concerns from certain people saying, you know, Salah, is he going to be benched for this game with Paris Saint-Germain, the Champions League fixture on Tuesday? But Salah did get subbed off a little earlier than full time in the Wednesday fixture. So I think that is certainly positive for Salah. But also, yeah, again, the comments from Slot suggest that there's not going to be any major changes and only kind of the peripheral starters are probably more likely to get benched than the really super important guys, because this is just an important game as any other game for Liverpool in the opinion of the manager, which is good to hear. The other thing people talking about Salah is Ramadan and fasting. So obviously Salah has been in the Premier League for, this is his 8th season. First few seasons, we certainly did see Salah and his numbers drop off a little bit during the period of time in which he was fasting. But certainly over the past 4 or 5 years, we've seen no drop off of the performance of Salah whatsoever. We've got to use the most recent data, and in my opinion, there is going to be no difference for Salah and his output. He has been so good this season. I don't think he is going to be suddenly bad because he is fasting for I don't know how old Salah is, 32 now. For the 32nd year in his life. You know, he's been doing this a while. I'm sure he's used to it by now. He's a professional athlete in the form of his career, super fit guy. He's going to be absolutely fine. I'm not concerned about that at all. Not concerned about benching, not concerned about fatigue. He's going to be good. I really do believe that. And it's against Southampton. I mean, come on, guys. This is Salah's like perfect game in so many ways. Southampton, weakest team in the Premier League. Salah playing at home. He is the strongest individual player in the entire Premier League. It is a match made in heaven, surely, guys. And if you have your triple captain, I would certainly be considering playing it, because I think the only other options for you to play a triple captain, if you do still have that chip, would be either Gameweek 32, maybe, or possibly Gameweek 36, if we do see a double game week in Gameweek 36. Although I have to say, it is starting to look less likely that we will have a double game week in Gameweek 36. That the chances of that happening are starting to drop a little bit. So, yeah, I think this genuinely could be a really big opportunity if you feel you might be using other chips around Gameweek 32, 33. So, there you go. That's my Salah spiel out the way. Cole Palmer is the next guy here. Leicester at home, brilliant fixture, but the form is not there for Palmer. But he does seem like he wants to regain that form. He posted on Instagram earlier on last week, saying that, you know, he will be back. And I believe him. And I know some people will say, you know, Leicester, fantastic fixture, of course, but Palmer is out of form. Is he going to be able to do that? But we know that good fixtures breed form. We've seen that with the likes of Nkunku, another player who has been out of form recently, comes in, plays against Southampton, puts up a mega score. And Palmer also is a penalty taker. You only need a bit of luck for this super attacking team, a team that typically does win penalties because of the technical players running at men in and around the box. That's definitely going to be beneficial for Chelsea to win penalties, and there's going to be even more opportunity to do that against Leicester. So, yeah, I still think Palmer is certainly a keep. You've got to give him another go for this Leicester fixture. So let's move on to Brian Mbeumo, another player in hot form at the moment. Aston Villa are actually one of the weaker defences in the entire Premier League at the moment. They are putting up some shocking defensive numbers, putting them in the bottom 3 now for expected goals conceded. So super weak there. So I think this could be, again, a nice fixture for Mbeumo. And I'm pretty happy how certainly these first 3 midfielders, how things have laid out for them. All 3 fantastic opportunities, genuinely. So let's complete the midfield with the likes of Kluivert against Spurs. It looks outwardly like Spurs might be improving defensively with new players, old players coming back to fitness. However, the data suggests a different story and that Spurs are conceding a lot of chances still. Kluivert in red hot form doesn't really have the numbers to back himself up at the moment, but he is in incredible form. He is taking those shots on that you don't necessarily expect a player to score, but when you are in that great form, you have the confidence to take the shots on, to deliver. You know, he's in that hot streak still to this moment. So he has been, kind of the top scoring midfielder behind Salah over the past 6 game weeks, 7, 8 game weeks. So he's going to be a super useful asset to have against a Spurs defence, which in my opinion is still pretty weak. We've got Dango, who I think I'm less positive about, and ideally I would maybe bench Dango. If I had another option, then maybe Dango would move to the bench, because now that Evan Nilsson is back, started in the FA Cup as the central striker, Dango's position in the team has become a little bit more difficult. Obviously, Dango was deputising as the makeshift striker and doing a pretty good job there as well. However, I'm hoping that Dango can still play on the wing this week, because even though Evan Nilsson is probably going to take that starting central striker role, Dango has still been a really good servant to Bournemouth during the past couple of months, and I think he has earned himself a place in the team. My prediction, most likely outcome, is that we do see Evan Nilsson start as the central striker, with Kluivert, Semenyo obviously playing, Kluivert in the middle, Semenyo on the wing, but there's nothing to say that Dango can't come in instead of a Brooks, for example, who seems to be the player who's most frequently sacrificed in that Bournemouth attack. So I don't want to say for sure that Dango is going to start, but I am reasonably hopeful, and I think it's more likely that Dango starts, be that on the wing or as the central striker. I think that's more likely than not. And against Spurs, you know, there's going to be opportunities here, and I don't know if it justifies selling Dango, making a Dango transfer, just because he has that fixture in game week 29 as well. And it's really important we try and keep as many players in our squad who actually do play in Game Week 29, particularly for those of you guys who, like me, are not free hitting in Game Week 29, because, every point is going to count. It's all going to be very useful by the time we get to the Game Week 29 deadline. But let's move, let's have a look at the stats for midfielders before we move to the forwards, and because it's actually kind of interesting. I was looking for expected goal involvements per start over the past 6 game weeks among midfielders, and Minter is actually at the #1 spot right now, which is interesting. 5 million midfielder, but his fixtures are kind of tough over the next couple of game weeks. But after that, we see Mbeumo, Salah, Palmer and Dango as the players with the highest amount of expected goal involvements in FPL for those midfielders, and all 4 of them are in my team. Like I did mention, Kluivert is not putting up quite the same underlying numbers, but 0.4 expected goal involvements is pretty high still. It's not like way off the boil, so he's a little bit lower than some of our other guys, but you can see statistically all of these players are very, very strong, and statistics often do result in actual results, and we've seen a lot of that with the likes of Mbeumo, Salah, Dango and Kluivert. Maybe less so with Palmer, but this is all positive stuff that we would need to take into consideration, particularly when we're looking to buy new midfielders. Is there any other midfielders with good numbers here? Sarr, Enzo, Mitoma, Savinho, Elanga, Bowen, Bruno. whole bunch of players here that maybe we could think about in the near future. But let's move on to the forwards, because we have got up front Alexander Isak, and I'm going to throw on screen the latest quote on him, and this is from Eddie Howe. He is fine. He came off on Sunday feeling fatigued, a tightness in his body, but he's trained every day this week, and I think that's the biggest positive you can take. I know Howe can be deceiving sometimes, but if Isak has been training all week, and he's not going to lie about the fact that Isak's been training, then that's a really, really positive sign. A player who is training is usually good to play. So, if we compare like Isak to Gakpo, for example, Gakpo has not been training, so he's at a big risk of not starting. But usually when a player is training all week, and there's no significant injury, unless they're coming back from a long injury layoff, then usually they're good to play that weekend, particularly when you're a player as important as Isak is to Newcastle, and even more so now that Gordon is going to be unavailable, suspended for this week as well. So Isak plays against West Ham. It's a decent fixture. He blanks in game week 29, of course, but we will cross that bridge next week. For now, Isak is in the team. And Wissa is my final player in the starting 11. And we mentioned about how this fixture for Brentford is really nice for Brentford against Aston Villa. Even more so for Wissa, because we do see that Aston Villa concede a lot of chances in those central areas, and that's going to be primed for Wissa to come in and do some damage. And to make things even more interesting, Wissa has been in some really good statistical form in particular. So over the past 6 game weeks, 0.6 expected goals per start, which is really, really nice stuff. That is kind of level with Isak on those expected goal involvements. Really, really nice stuff. And it's only Mateta, Haaland and Wood who are outscoring him on that particular metric over the past few weeks. Obviously, the points have been a slightly different story for Wissa over the past 6 weeks. But if we look at the last 2 weeks, we have seen that Wissa has been scoring. So he has found that form again. He is finishing his chances again, whereby the week before that, 2 goals disallowed. Before that, missed a couple of big opportunities. But sometimes as a striker, you just need that spark, and then you'll just continue to score and score and score and score. So really genuinely like Wissa for this Aston Villa game. The fixtures after that do get a little tougher for our friends at Brentford. But Wissa for now, really, really nice. Let's go to the bench, guys. Fabianski, of course, a mainstay on the bench, no longer a starter. And Dye, still injured, still somehow in my team. But there we go. He's dropped down to 5.3 million. So it's my team value is not looking quite as crazy as it was before, because I have had a couple of players dropping in price, and Dye being one of them. Castagna, like I mentioned, is going to be on my bench. I'm going to go for Kirkes this week instead. And Lewis Hall, injured, out for the season. Really, really devastating for the lad. And also for us FPL managers, because we love Lewis Hall in the FPL world. We really, really do. And it would have been nice to have him for some of these fixtures, particularly that double game week in game week 32 coming up. That would have been nice to have a little Lewis Hall for that fixture. But it wasn't to be. We have to play what's in front of us and consider what kind of transfer moves we're going to make. So I have 2 free transfers right now. I'm going to explain what I'm going to do with them, and I think we're onto something good here. I really, really like my plan, and it's really important that the transfers that I'm using right now have game week 29 in mind. My wild card is going to be played game week 30 at the absolute earliest, but more likely in game week 31. So with my transfers right now, I'm looking for players who are good for right now. I'm looking for players who play in game week 29, preferably with a good fixture. But also, I want players who are good for game week 30 as well. Game week 30 is going to be an important game week for me, the final week before my wild card most likely, and therefore I need to just kind of dead end into the kind of game week 30 area with the kind of moves that I'm thinking about making. So before we have a look at the kind of transfer moves I'm thinking of, just want to put it out there. I am going to be captaining Salah this week. Yes, boring, I know, but it's Southampton. I was happy to take a risk on Palmer when Palmer was playing against Southampton and Salah had a more difficult fixture against Newcastle, but that is just not the case this week. Salah has an easier fixture than Palmer and is the better FPL asset than Palmer. So, yes, there's probably something, it could go the way of Palmer, it could, but the chances of that happening are significantly less so than they were last week. So I think Salah captain, Palmer vice captain, although, I'm not opposed to a cheeky little Wissa or Umberto Burmo vice captain there as well. Trent, oh, I don't know, but we're going to stick with Palmer for the vice captain for this week. But don't want to put people off going for something a little bit different this week. I don't think it is strictly necessary, though. Like I was mentioning when we were talking about Salah, it is so positive for him this week. Everything is fallen really, really nicely for him, and it could be a really big score. So let's talk about transfers, guys. So for this week, guys, we are going to be talking about transfers on the Fantasy Football Hub My Team tool. If you haven't checked this out already, excellent tool for planning. It's what I've been using for all of my planning over the course of the season, and you can check it out for free using the link of in the description. So yeah, go check that out if you would like to go ahead and do that. But yeah, I want to show you what I'm thinking with these transfers right now, because I do have a plan, and it is, in my opinion, really good. So right now, Game Week 28, I have 2 free transfers, and I'll have 3 free transfers if we include the one in Game Week 29 to try and get to a position where we have a full playing team. Currently, I actually already have 9 men who play in Game Week 29. So already pretty advantageous situation. Obviously, I may have sacrificed some points in order to get to this position, but through planning, maybe over planning to a degree, we're looking pretty good right now. We're looking pretty hot, and certainly we're well prepared for Game Week 29, but we could be even more prepared. And I'm going to show you how we're going to get a phenomenal Game Week 29 team together. So first of all, I put this one out there. I want Haaland. I want Haaland in my team. We spoke about going for players for Game Week 28, 29, 30. Haaland fits that bill for me. He plays against Brighton at home in 29. Any home fixture I am happy with. We know Brighton can completely capitulate at times, and Man City obviously improving in form in the Premier League. Lots to play for them. And in Game Week 30, amazing home fixture against Leicester for Haaland. So these Man City guys, I want them, and I want them now. They play this Brighton game, they play this Leicester game. Even Game Week 28, I think, is pretty good for them. My issue with Haaland and in particular is he is just so damn expensive. We know this, and I think in the longer term, do I want to spend that amount of money on a player like Haaland? Maybe not. That is why it's good that I'm wildcarding in Game Week 31. So I'll be able to make that decision if I want to keep Haaland or try and move to some cheaper guys. But certainly for now, I need to fund a Haaland move. How am I going to do that? Well, it's difficult. Right now, the way I see it, the way anyone is going to get to Haaland in their team is they're going to have to probably sell 2 out of Trent, Salah, Palmer, and Isak. 2 out of those 4 players are going to have to go to fund Haaland. Now, I look through these 4 players. Trent, Salah against Southampton at home. Palmer against Leicester at home. Isak against West Ham away. And Haaland plays Nottingham Forest away. When we look at that comparatively, you kind of just got to think, nah, it's not happening this week. It's not happening. But I want to make sure that I'm in a position where that can happen next week. So, yes, I could improve my bench, by maybe upgrading Hall to Gavardio. But that's spending money. I do have a little bit of money in the bank, 3.4 million. But do I want to spend that money? It's a little bit risky. I'm not sure I do. Ndai also is a player that has got to go. Do I upgrade him to Chris Wood? I could definitely do that. But again, spending that money is going to be tough when I need to fund the Haaland move. So how are we going to do it? Well, the key is we're not going to do it in Game Week 29. So, Game Week 28. We're going to do it in Game Week 29. So this is the transfer idea that I have, which I can afford to do, and that is to sell Trent, Palmer, and Ndai to Gavardio, Savinho, and Haaland for free, triple transfer in Game Week 29, which would mean my team would look like this for Game Week 29, and it's pretty strong, guys. It is pretty strong as far as Game Week 29 teams go, and it is going to be a low-scoring game week. It is pretty good. The one player I'm probably missing from this team is Chris Wood. But do I, take a -4 and sell Isak for Chris Wood and then bench, probably Castagna in that game week? I don't know. Particularly, I've got all this team value tied up in Isak as well. It doesn't make too much sense for me to do that. I'm going to want to have Isak back for Game Week 32 for his double game week. I don't want to sacrifice Isak. Ideally, Hall is not a problem. He can just stay on the bench anyway for that game week. So I think this 4-4-2 is probably going to be the way I do things. for the new game week. I think maybe, I don't know who will vice captain. Maybe vice captain and Burmo possibly there. I think could be some goals in that Brentford against Bournemouth game. I'm hoping there is because I'm kind of counting on it with my team. But I think this is kind of what I'm looking at for free for game week 29. And that means I have to roll my transfer this week. So my team for game week 28 I think is strong enough. But it allows me to do this big move in Game Week 29, which is going to be really, really, really strong. That'll take me into Game Week 30, probably the week before my wild card. And in that game week, we have a bit of options. We have a bit of flexibility. So we would play Pickford, no goalkeeper transfers, not worth it, particularly for a 1 week punt. But we'll have Kirkes, Gabriel, and Gvardiol. Really strong defensive lineup for that week. We've got Salah, Savinho against Leicester, and Burmo and Cliver in midfield, and Haaland, Isak, and Wissa up front. Really nice. Dango probably going on the bench because I think I'll be very concerned about his minutes by that point. Very concerned indeed. Unless he, does something wonderful in game week 28 and 29 and really solidifies his position in the Bournemouth team, I can see him dropping out by the time we get to game week 30. So this is what my game week 30 team would look like. And again, I think it's really strong. I wouldn't even have to make a transfer here, which means I could roll one of my transfers through the wild card. And also, it has this guy. Differential option. We had a look at the best midfielders, and Savinho is firmly on that list of one of the strongest midfielders for those underlying numbers. And we also see from Savinho that he is a player who is pretty much playing every game. Like, he is more nailed on than Foden at the moment, putting up better numbers than Foden. And people are very keen to say, yeah, Foden is the guy I want to go for as a Man City midfielder. Savinho is better numbers, better minutes. Yeah, but I think because he's cheaper and, he hasn't got that same history Foden has, that people are ignoring Savinho. So, yeah, 2.3% owned, super differential against Brighton and Leicester back-to-back. There's going to be less rotation for Man City. They are going to be playing their best players because, they're only in the FA Cup and the Premier League now. So that is super handy as well. I like this, man. I really like this triple Man City move. And then once I'm bored with them, game week 31, we can wildcard them out or keep them depending on what my chip strategy ends up being. And by the way, on chip strategy, I definitely recommend you guys go check out my full chip strategy video that we uploaded earlier this week. But I'm leaning towards now wildcarding game week 31, bring in a bunch of players who do not blank in game week 34. Have I got that right? Yeah, no, players who do not double in game week 33 and do not blank in game week 34. That's right. So we're going to be talking about those players who are out of the FA Cup and whose oppositions are out of the FA Cup. Looking at Liverpool, for example, Newcastle. We'll know for sure all of the teams by the time we get to game week 30, 31. So we'll figure that out later, exactly which players. But then what I'm planning on doing is actually bench boosting in game week 32, free hitting in game week 33, and that will be all of my chips done for the season. Only got the wild card, the bench boost, and the free hit left. So yeah, it will be all of them, spamming them out between game week 31 and 33. Wild card, bench boost, then free hitting in the double game week 33, which will be really good. And then in game week 34, I'll have all those players who will be fine to play at that point. So that's my chip strategy right now. I am open to changing, but thankfully, because I am not free hitting this week, and I am wildcarding after the blanks and the international break and the FA Cups games have been played for the quarterfinals, I'm still open. I can still adapt and be flexible in what I do for my chip strategy, but that's probably the way I think it's going to play out. So yeah, just wanted to put that one out there. But that is going to be the complete team selection video for today, as well as a little bit of strategy stuff moving forward, a little bit of planning stuff as well, and maybe a little shout for differential Savinho. Just going to mention that player early so you're not too shocked when I put him in my team next week, but we'll see how that goes. But guys, if you did enjoy this video, make sure you do hit the like button. Massively helps out. Do subscribe if you're new around here, and feel free to check out some more of the Game Week 28 tips videos that we have been uploading all week. Experts, chip strategy, buy, sell, keep, avoid, whatever you want, you name it, it's right there. But until tomorrow's deadline stream, I will see you later, mates. Bye bye.